Hello and welcome to this topic on advanced spirituality. This is my annual year in review. Typically I would usually write these out, but we're coming out with some more video these days, so I thought we would go through it in video and give everyone a sort of a higher dimensional perspective of 2023, the year that was. Honestly, since I've been doing this work in the higher dimension, since probably 2013, when I've been starting to actively look into the different dimensions and how these different dimensions are bleeding through into creating this reality into the third dimension. This has honestly been the biggest year, the biggest shift in the whole entire matrix, most likely for this entire seeding. This is the third seeding of our species. This particular seeding is 6 million years in the making, certainly in the last 5,000, 6,000 years. This has been unprecedented, the amount of shift that has happened energetically in the matrix. Now, before I begin the year in review, I might just do a little frame up for those of you that are wanting a comprehension of why this was so monumental. We must first understand the structure and nature of the matrix. So this time-space matrix is made up of sound, vibration, light. It's got various properties held together by an operating system that feeds into natural law. That's God's sort of will in terms of how the matrix operates. One of the key principles, it's held together by matter and antimatter. Antimatter is kind of that more chaotic energy which feeds and powers those beings who are on the path of service to self, who draw energy through louche and chaotic energies into them, which powers them up. And I think to give a full comprehension of what all this means and the understanding of it, we must go back to the very beginning, beyond this planet, beyond to the realms of creation, where there was this massive energetic fracturing and split from the source realms, which created the grey, and down from the grey, the realms of the demiurge. Some of you may have heard the demiurge, but is that massive galactic, massive gestalt macro force that has created these reversal currents and has dropped down to the archons, and as it includes falling angelics, includes those beings in the different dimensions on the path of service to others that pull energy towards them. Basically, there's two paths in spirituality. There's the path of service to self, and that is the path of drawing energy towards yourself for increasing your power. And there's the path of service to others, which draws energy from source through you towards others. And these two diametrically opposed forces are in obviously this massive field of consciousness, end up in these little polarized ways of how they navigate life. The beings on the path of service to self have created these complex energetic structures from the top down, including the fallen angelics, including the different races in the different dimensions from 11.5 downward, including the Draconians and the Anunnaki and the other various race of beings you may have heard of, that create reversal structures that power up their system to allow them to collect more energy and power themselves up. Now, the big picture pill that I'd like to give you is that in the previous eons of time, there has been much more antimatter than matter in the matrix. In the realms of the law of polarity, there is the two polarities of matter, which is the matter and light, and antimatter and kind of dark. So if you visualize the Tai Chi symbol, or the yin-yang symbol, there's the side of black with a little bit of white, and there's the side of white with a little bit of black. And if you can visualize that for understanding the tensegrity of the matrix, the length-tension relationships, historically our matrix has been governed by, mainly at the moment, for the last eons of time, I'm talking most likely billions of years, massive amounts of antimatter with a little bit of matter. And what's been happening recently is that we're starting to see the pendulum move from the realms of antimatter towards the realms of matter and light. And enormous rebalancing is happening in the matrix. And as it turns out, Earth and the planet here is playing quite a pivotal role in that tensegrity length tension relationships between antimatter and matter, And this is all playing out here on this planet, which seems to have been historically a very big anchor for the realms of antimatter. And this is why our planet has historically been in the way it has. And we saw this, of course, highlighted during the recent pandemics and all of the craziness that happened there with lockdowns and other various things that happened. People could see more clearly what was really going on our planet. Our planet has been in the third dimension, which is like an anchor for all the other dimensions in consciousness where other beings and consciousness fields reside, has kept the matrix locked in the realms of antimatter. And this is why there's been so much spiritual support, let's call it, for humanity for a long time, so that our species can wake up to a level of consciousness that can comprehend the matrix, the nature of reality playing out, and build ourselves up to a station of spiritual maturity where we can bust ourselves out of the open-air prison that we have been in. So what this means is that essentially we are coming to a point of spiritual maturity as a species where we can comprehend and understand the nature of reality, the nature of the matrix, and how various intruder races have been creating these control prisons that have been hidden in the invisible realms, that have been trapping our consciousness and keeping it locked and stuck. And this goes back thousands of years to about, maybe 5,500 years ago, where there was a major insertion where beings came and unplugged our genetic history, our genetics and DNA, and created locks and caps in our consciousness so we couldn't reach the higher dimensions of our potentiality. If you can imagine, this matrix has 12 dimensions of consciousness. There are, beyond that, of course, more dimensions, but these are held in the realms of liquid thermal light and sound fields. The primal sound fields hold the templates for the 12 dimensions. So dimensions, for example, 13, 14, 15 are kind of like these primal sound fields which hold the templating for the 12 dimensions. At the 12th dimension, it is pure sort of, let's call it cosmic Christ consciousness. And then as you get down to 11 and a half and 11 below, there are interference lines and beings and races that live within these realms below that are not necessarily of the path of service to others, that are on the path of service to self. It's these beings that reside in these higher dimensions which are influenced by the grey, the demiurge, which sends these false God-type energetics through them that create reversal currents that bring them back up to them, where they can feed off those energetics and continue to survive. Because what happened as the large separation from source happened, and what we might call the grey, then it realised that it needed to survive because it was no longer eternally plugged in to source where it could draw its eternal life force energy. It needed to vampire energy off others in the realms and dimensions below by feeding off all of its creation. So if we go to source, we have source and we have the grey. Just below source or God, we have the angels and we have the Elohim. The angels are the divine will of God and the Elohim are the creator gods. So from just below that realm, we have the grey that has gone in and influenced portions of the angelics, which then some of those angelics fell, including, say, for example, the Luciferian consciousness fields, and enormous angelic rays of energy, because they were no longer plugged into source, had to create vast networks of fear, chaos, destruction, misery, suffering, pain, and that energy became their power source to feed them up. And as we start dropping this down through the dimensions, what's happened here on this particular planet is that those vast energetic consciousness fields and the beings who have been influenced by it have created these various reversal currents and control systems that have set up enormous amounts of energy that has been siphoned off planet to feed off the higher intelligence fields above. What I want to present to you in this year in review is what I might consider an unprecedented shift in the tensegrity of the dynamic forces between matter and antimatter. This has been unprecedented, the shift in most likely our third seeding, and I want to just go through the year and point out some of the highlights which have happened through this big shift, because I know that this world right now, if you see it from the lens of what's happening physically in the realm, many people don't have a lot of hope. The recent after effects of COVID-19 into the Russia-Ukraine war, into the recent war again with happening in Israel, have left so many people disheartened and upset about what's happening on our planet. What I want to say to you, if you're someone like that, is that while you may not see it physically yet, so much has shifted that has been creating the war and the chaos that soon in the years ahead a massive transformation is going to happen on this planet. This is literally a message of hope, and I just need you to comprehend and understand that as more matter and light is created, more harmony and love and coherence and balance is brought forth to the earth as our expression. However, right now we are in a point where the swing between antimatter and matter is not yet rippled down to the third dimension, to the physical realm. We won't see the changes yet in the physical realm for another year or two, but I want to share with you that so much has changed. And I hope this discourse and conversation and consciousness and markers that have happened along the way can really bring you into a sense of hope that real change is coming. And as we step into 2024, there is an American election coming, and there is a strong possibility that for the first time for a very, very long time, a non-cabal member will emerge as president, because the energetics supporting what has gone previously, their power source is gone. So bear with me in today's discussions as we go through month by month what's kind of happened, and I hope this fills you with hope, because there is real hope there now. There's still work to be done, and this work is our own personal journey, and I will be giving some tips and suggestions what we can do individually to support these collective shifts. The first thing I want to do and honour is those beings who are part of the Earth Guardian group, beings who have been supporting with some of this work on the ground, all the spirits that have been assisting from the Guardian Alliance, the Council of Elders, the Sisterhood of the Rose, the Order of Melchizedek, all the beings who are in the higher realms, who have not forsaken us, who have stood by us and supported and been the energetic backup for everything that is going on the planet, to all the various groups on the planet that are doing the work, who are involved in doing the grid work, who are involved in working with some of the consciousness fields, and who are involved around the planet. It's been a multi-dimensional team effort. It's not just groupings who are affiliated with us, it's many, many groupings. This is just a summary of some of our observations and direct experiences in the year, and I feel that this is also just a message for all other people who have been in selfless service to service to others and serving the One, and to Mother, Father, God, who has never forsaken us and has been there as that beautiful backup and support, because it is now divine will, and divine will has decreed that it is time for the balance to move from the realms of antimatter to the realms of matter. And as a big broadcast statement, I would like to share with you that if you view the realms of antimatter to be, say, like a pendulum, where the horizontal swing is there and has come all the way to the bottom as 100%, I feel we started the year maybe 70% antimatter, and now we're swinging back, so the pendulum is at the zero, almost just past the 0 point, where the balance is kind of just at the very, very bottom and just beyond. And what that means is we're now over, there's more matter in the system than antimatter, and that changes everything, because the power source that was powering up the chaos on the planet doesn't have as much as the sides of matter and light. So for those of you on the path of service to others and inspired by love and compassion and kindness, there's slightly more energy in the matrix now to support that path than there was the path of service to others. And why you ask, well, why does God create that? Well, it's simply because if you do not know fear, you do not know love. Everything has to have polarity. There has to be a down to experience an up. There has to be a cold to experience a hot. There has to be an in to experience an out. So if you don't have polarity, you don't have these different experiences, and this is all a different experience of our soul's journey, all of our souls have been involved in the realms of dark and the realms of light. And in advanced spirituality, the sooner you take personal ownership of your dark lives, the faster you go in your growth of spirituality. And a really big trap in consciousness, in my opinion, is having a highly idealized self-image where you only experience yourself in the realms of light. The more you can look at the shadow, especially in your past lives, in your ancestral line, or how it was stored in the realms of karma, the faster you will progress in your spirituality. And I want to just say that while our planet, it may seem for some of you a little bit hopeless right now, or sad or upset, big, massive change is coming. Maybe not this coming year in 2024. Maybe we'll start to see the first signs of that as the November presidential election comes in. Certainly the year after, but as we get to 2026, we're going to start to see massive changes, and it's going to start to accelerate. And when we get to 2030, there's going to be a spike of massive acceleration, an exponential hockey stick curve up, for a grand sweeping of 12th dimensional current or Christ consciousness on the planet. And as that starts coming, it's just going to proliferate a sweeping change, like many of the indigenous cultures have identified with a golden age. And that is just simply a spiritual maturing of our species, because the capping of our consciousness is no longer there, and we will experience ourselves more in the unity consciousness spheres. My wife Alea and I have a vision of 100 million souls at super consciousness, at monadic consciousness by 2050. 100 million is an amazing kind of number that we see coming as a grand sweeping exponential sweep, where more and more people have their station of consciousness, their consciousness station at oversoul or monadic consciousness level, rather than just their soul. That means they are accessing divine will. That means they're seeing through the lens of the we rather than the lens of the I, and it's much more unified consciousness than ever before. So that's the promise. Let's go into the year. That's my little frame up. I hope that makes sense. I've just got some notes here to help me kind of through. So first up, on this planet, there have been some major anchors which have been locking down antimatter. Now, one of the first things to understand is that there are various control systems which have been locking everything down. We've got the realms of religion. The concept of religion is that it comes from Abrahamic as the link. The Abrahamic faiths have actually been a masquerading of God. That is, this large gestalt consciousness field that I've called the grey or the demiurge has been masquerading as God through the patriarchal-based Abrahamic faiths. The Abrahamic faiths are Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. All three of those religions are devoid of the feminine principle, and so our planet has been devoid of this large gestalt feminine consciousness, which has recently gone through in this year a full integration from the splits in the consciousness from the Dark Mother and the other various of the goddess movements and the other various distortions in the feminine consciousness has come into a much more integrated healing. So we're going to go into that, but that has meant that there's been a much better and smoother healing through the concepts and perceptions of those distortions of religion, through the Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. So in particular, the center point for the distortion of spirituality on the planet, of course, is no guesses there, the Vatican. In January, the anchor and antimatter of the Vatican had a major dissolving. Now, what we were tracking for the Vatican, of course, was that the Colosseum was used as a massive tornado, and that whirlwinding massive field of antimatter was powering up the Vatican, which was just a lockbox of antimatter. And what happens is many visitors go into those fields, they pick up the antimatter, and the antimatter creates these distortions and chaotic energies, so that when they go home, people are fed in with antimatter into the system. It creates a little bit of chaos in their life. And that's, of course, as people go around various sites in different parts of the planet, when there's large pockets of antimatter, they pick that antimatter up in their field, and it leads to all these destructive type energetics that create chaos in their life. They can't kind of comprehend it, but that's kind of what's been the reflection. The massive amounts of antimatter left the Vatican in January, and in February what we also started to experience and witness was the seeding of a new Christic time-space matrix. So this is quite major. Let me try to allow you to comprehend the different matrices that we have. We have the particle time-space matrix. This is the one that we are currently in. We're currently viewing ourselves and our own consciousness in the particle time-space matrix. There's also concurrently an antiparticle time-space matrix, and there's also concurrently a phantom time-space matrix, which our planet has been in, as we've been going down into a phantom black hole, being pulled down by these Gestalt consciousness fields that have been pulling down our planet and our system into the darker realms of chaos. And we also, so we have the particle and antiparticle time-space matrix and a phantom time-space matrix. In spirituality, when there's various levels of ascension. When people talk of ascension, many times they're talking about ascending out of our planet, and that's when you're having your consciousness at a certain station of identity. You ascend out of the planet when you resolve all of your karma on the earthly plane. That means you've got to become karma neutral and have resolved enough karma where you can leave our planet and not come back into an incarnational cycle. When we speak of cosmic ascension, we're speaking of your consciousness moving out to a full ascension out of the time-space matrix. That means you're evolving your consciousness to a point where you are circulating the full aspect of your consciousness. What does that mean? Imagine yourself from source, and then you begin to enter this matrix, and you step down your consciousness from 12, 10, 11, 10, all the way down to third. You have left aspects of your consciousness in each of these dimensions. As you continue to grow and evolve your spirituality, you begin to be able to reintegrate and circulate these higher aspects of your consciousness as you start to do more and more shadow work, and you start to do more and more polarity integration, and you begin to be able to access higher and higher aspects of your own consciousness, so that you move first up into your oversoul consciousness, then into your avatar consciousness, and ultimately into a Rishi consciousness, which is your ascended consciousness. The next step from there is to then polarity integrate that with an ascended consciousness in the antiparticle time-space matrix. As your antiparticle and particle consciousness fields go through a polarity integration, then you access up into this aspect of the divine child, which is the full birthing into your Christed energies, your 12th dimensional current. What happened this year that we saw the first hierogamic union, the first union of a twin consciousness field, feminine consciousness and a masculine consciousness emerge out of the time-space matrix, and that then birthed this new Christic time-space matrix. And that was seeded in around about February this year, which created a seeding for a new Christic time-space matrix where the dimensions are no longer delineated by magnetic repulsion zones between dimensions. What that means is in our reality right now, each dimension is separated by a magnetic repulsion zone, keeping the consciousness and beings having separations between dimensions. The new Christic time-space matrix, which has just been seeded earlier this year, there's no magnetic repulsion zones, there's just one 12th dimensional current. And what can happen is that this is now an overlay on our reality, and more beings and more people are going to grow their consciousness to step up into it and live and reside within, on this plane, on this dimension, within a Christic time-space matrix, where they're fully streaming that 12th dimensional current all the time. And what we're going to see over the coming decade and beyond is more and more people migrating into this new Christic time-space matrix as they ascend out of this time-space matrix, as the antiparticle itself has ascended out, and they merge the two together and they pop into this new Christic time-space matrix. That is literally the principle of going through this process of the Trinity. Divine Father, Divine Mother, merging them together, and therefore emerges the child, the third aspect of consciousness. That is the path of spirituality. The path of yoga is you go through the pathway on your own, solo, where you merge your feminine and masculine consciousness of your own, and then you merge into the time-space matrix, the Christic time-space matrix. The path of Tantra is that you go through that process with a partner and enter that process, and then both of you go through it together and you grow together. So what I've witnessed is the time-space matrix, the crystic time-space matrix, which is the potentiality of our species, has been seeded in February earlier this year, and then later on in the year it got seeded onto the physical domain, onto the physical planet, onto this third dimensional construct, and that is now growing and seeding on our planet. So that was really exciting, witnessing that in February. Then in March there was a massive shift to the City of London. If we take a look at the control systems on Earth, we had the Vatican, we had the City of London, and the City of District of Columbia. They are the three different cities which are independent states within their countries. The Vatican City is an independent state within Italy. It's independent and sort of cabal orientated and owned. The City of London is independent to the United Kingdom, and the District of Columbia, i.e. Washington, is a separate state to the United States. Each of these three elements held these pockets of power, massive amounts of antimatter. And so March was really interesting because the City of London held a lot of the financial currents down, but also it turns out it held the planetary operating system. Now, what was interesting about the planetary operating system is that think of the operating system of your computer. Some of you are on a Mac OS, some of you are on a PC, there may even be some of you on a Linux. What we saw was a massive swapping out of our original blueprint. Our original planetary operating system that was linked to our species was swapped out 5,500 years ago on the alien invasion, and a new planetary operating system was installed. The one that was installed was not our species, it came from the Anunnaki, and they installed a planetary operating system that was linked to hierarchy. This hierarchy meant that there was a few beings at the top that would control everything, and all the reversal currents would send all the energy up into them to feed the power system. On this planet, there were 13 families that became the bloodline, linked in to the Anunnaki and the other beings who were feeding that system, and they became the, let's call it the embodied ones who would hold the power on this planet where all the energy would feed up into them. And that planetary operating system became an Anunnaki outpost, and the Anunnaki have a lot of outposts all through the multiverse that became prison planets and became sort of these energetic feeds into the overall Anunnaki mainframe. And so this particular planet had an Anunnaki mainframe planetary operating system of hierarchy installed into it, and in March this had a major reboot. What this means is that the Anunnaki mainframe operating system was taken out, and the original human blueprint planetary operating system was reinstalled, and a massive reboot happened. And for a few months it was very sensitive as it was sort of birthing itself, and now it's starting to get more solid once again. Of our original blueprint is now being revived. Because this is all holographic and all the other different systems around the galaxy, what we witnessed also was a proliferation across all the different other planetary operating systems that had been hijacked by the Anunnaki. Simultaneously went through a massive sovereignty upgrade, whereby the Anunnaki mainframe operating system was simultaneously taken out of all the other different star systems and galaxies that were operating around the planet, and all those keys and codes of their original blueprint was handed back to them, and all the feeds that were going up to the Anunnaki system were taken out. So it was a very exciting moment in March as a massive reboot happened, and the Anunnaki lost a lot of their power. April, certainly for our family, this was a massive piece for us because we went to Gabon and went through a massive initiation for the sacred wood. That was a monumental time for myself, and my wife Leah went soon after. We had these massive crazy upgrades, and it took a bit of time to integrate. We were on a 6-month tour, and then we were able to come home in May, and there was still a lot of work that was going on the Anunnaki cleanups and all of those things that were kind of going on throughout there. As we started to spend more time at home, we noticed there was a massive power vacuum. Within that power vacuum, of course, there were other races, other beings, other species seeing that the Anunnaki overlay had been taken out, and there was a little bit of time where there was a little bit of wrestling to see who could then insert a new operating system. Thankfully, our star brothers and sisters and guardians were able to support and ensure that that very important time period where our system was still new and hadn't really matured yet and come online was protected. And I'm happy to state that our planetary operating system is protected and connected. It still needs work, and in particular, it needs Hara. It needs a Hara healing regularly every 3 months. If you're watching this video and you're inspired to do that, I invite you to join us on the 11th of January, where we're going to do a global meditation to strengthen the planetary operating system with a Hara healing. I've also designed a planetary operating system kind of meditation. I'll see if I can create a link for that in the video below, and you're able to download that, and you can also sort of utilize that to help flourish our new operating system. Would be greatly appreciated. You can do it at any time as well. If you're watching this video after the 11th of January, no problem, do it often. We need more people bringing our system on into Hara. So in July, when we get into July, and we release the Ultimate Alignment Protocol, a beautiful personal auric field upgrade. But of course, this is more of a macro discussion. The big thing that we realized in July was that there was a massive Iron Dragon consciousness around our planet. And this Iron Dragon consciousness was powering up the system for them to come at us with a lot of artificial intelligence overlays and a whole lot of more drama in the pandemic side of things. Now remember, everything that we experience in the physical has an energetic counterpart. And what you need to create something such as a big global piece like we saw in the pandemic was enormous amounts of energy. And what we noticed, there was a very intricate ritual to comprehend this. We study the occult a lot, the hidden sciences, the hidden spiritual sciences. There's 2 realms of the hidden spiritual sciences. There's, maybe in the realms of being mystical. There's the mystical side for the realms of matter and light, and there's the mystical side for the realms of antimatter and dark. And so much of the structures on the planet have been done by occult ritual in the realms of antimatter and dark. And when you know spells and how to create rituals that are dark, these hold the structures in place to be able to create things that you want to create. And so everything that we see on the earth has been anchored down by rituals and spells and created a whole lot of dark architecture that's been locking down the planet. And this is why nothing has moved for several thousand years, and this is why the planetary operating systems remain the same, and the 13 families who are the hidden power behind the throne, behind all of the physical layers and structures, have been held in place for so long, because all the rituals and the spells and the black architecture have been held down by such strong rituals that there hasn't been the opportunity to break them until recently, where more and more matter and light is being coming into the realms, and enough consciousness is being held by enough groups to work out how to undo all those spells. So that's what's been happening. The Iron Dragon was a massive consciousness field that was building a lot of energy, and it was holding the potential timeline to have more lockdowns and pandemics and forced vaccinations and all these types of pieces. That then did get cleared, which is beautiful. That was a massive cleanup job of the Red Iron Dragon that was holding a massive amount of current for, let's call it malevolent AI, and also for kind of negative agenda intent towards more lockdowns, including issues around electricity, issues around food and water, were the potential timeline that was playing out there. And I'm pleased to say there was a full dissolution, dissolving of the Red Iron Dragon consciousness field that was holding a negative timeline for humanity, and that happened in July. So a major cleanup happened there. As we get into August, it was a big marker for myself personally. It was my 50th birthday. I did receive a very major upgrade in consciousness along with my wife into unity consciousness a lot more, and we did find a major piece that was a reality lock that was held in place by a very complex ritual that was being put into place that involved lost souls that were trapped into a ritual that were projected into the void, and the void was then sending down the fear, anxiety and pain from these lost trapped souls in the void coming back down here anchored in by a reality stone. And so that complex ritual was found and dissolved. all the souls that were trapped in the void and were being used as a holographic projection broadcast into this reality, creating the reality of this control system, were returned, and the ritual and the spell broken completely, and that there was a full resolution to the holographic projection of the timeline held in the void by the trapped souls that were in there. And so those trapped souls were returned and brought back to their consciousness for rehabilitation. In September, each thing that we see in the world, there's always mystic alarms. The Vatican has a mystic alarm, a secret society that was linked, that was the power behind the Vatican. They were found and shut down. They had a magical talisman, a sword, that held a lot of power, and behind all of that. And the other big piece was the Belial Sun cleanup. Now, back in the end of 2022, in December, there was a big piece that happened with the Belial Sun. Now, what's the Belial Sun? There are two major agendas in the galaxy. There's the Black Sun agenda and the Belial Sun agenda. Black Sun agenda is complete annihilation of a species and to get them out of the way and insert another species into there. And that has been the case on a number of other different planetary systems around the galaxy. The particular agenda that is playing out here is the Belial Sun agenda. The Belial has an agenda of invisible takeover and control, and that has been held in place by the Luciferian ray of consciousness and the Luciferians who run this planet. So there was a major Belial Sun agenda cleanup where three core beings who were holding those contracts were able to be identified and were able to dissolve them as they have now moved into the path of service to others and the path of matter and light. And a full dissolution of the Belial Sun agenda contracts on this particular planet were dissolved and very close to having been done all the way to the top, meaning that all the contracts that held in place the various structures are now being dissolved. That was really exciting. The plug was also pulled on the old time-space matrix, and that new Christic time-space matrix, I believe, was seeded into the physical domain here in September this year. So what this means is that more and more and more people are going to end up having their consciousness migrated into the new time-space matrix as they move through this polarity integration of their ascended consciousness fields and end up coming into this beautiful new Christic time-space matrix that is just newly seeded. We get to October, and to understand how this works, we have to look at the massive, the fallen angelics. Remember, we spoke about Mother, Father, God, and then at that level we also have the grey, and then just under the grey, the demiurge is an aspect of the grey which feeds down into the matrix. And then at the very top on the right hand of God, we have the angels, the divine will of God. When an angel comes off divine will and goes to personal will, it's known as a fallen angelic. To continue to sustain itself, it uses fear, suffering, pain, misery to create a network. And in October, the Luciferian ray was a massive ray of consciousness that stemmed from the very, very top all the way down into this time-space matrix, all the way down into the 3D, where enormous amounts of suffering and pain were created to feed up the Luciferian ray. On this planet, what does that look like? That, is all the nasty human trafficking and slave trade and child trafficking kind of things that you're hearing whispers of that fuel the system. All that suffering gets pulled through, and what happens in this realm is that the humans who are involved in that kind of network, some of the secret societies who are involved in those very dark Luciferian rituals, get the kind of energy in terms of the life extension and the power in the 3D realm, and then that gets slowly fed up the chain all the way to Lucifer, who gets the rest of that loose energy to continue to sustain itself. I'm happy to announce that in October we saw the entire 90% of the Luciferian ray collapse. That was a massive divine will moment from God, who then said that's enough. And then the Luciferian ray went through a 90% cull. That means there's no Luciferian ray backup now for the Luciferians who run the planet. What are the Luciferians that run the planet? That's basically the beings who are involved in all those rituals and networks that have set up all the global control systems, had the backup from Lucifer, which means their power source was pretty much unlimited and they weren't going to be moved. They no longer have that energetic backup, which means all of that there has been moved out of the system, and now they are operating more on their own. This is why, I have a degree of confidence that there'll be some massive shifts in the cut, especially next year in America, where much of the antimatter and the power backup for what was happening in terms of the control systems and structures on the planet, especially through America, are no longer there. The free will choice from the Americans can start to reign as we can start to move from the polarity that's happening into a much more healed and whole state. Involved in that Luciferian ray were the elementals. The elementals were locked down within the Luciferian consciousness. We had earth, air, water, fire, all locked down, including ether. The elementals have now been freed from that ray, and the elementals are now free to create again. And so we should start to see some elemental healing going on throughout the planetary body, where of course there's been so much pollution and destruction going on, a big cleaning going up. And we had two major demonic lines closed down. We had the Baal line that closed down, and we have the Baphomet line. And so what this means is that in the second dimension, we have the demonic realm. And the demonic realm sometimes had portals open that would come through to this realm, and there are various people operating off different bloodlines and different contracts that would have the demon energy backing them up. And that demonic energy would give them enormous amounts of power when they're on the path of service to self and powered up by antimatter. When they have all that antimatter powering them up, they're very powerful and very strong, and they can go after things and they can make things happen, but it comes from a distorted power, the power of service to self. Then the demons would get some of that energy from below. So this was two major rays. We had the ray at the top, the Luciferian ray, and the Baal and the Baphomet demonic realms that had open portals to this realm were closed down. So that means that all those beings who were powered up by the demonic energy lines also lost a lot of their power. So it was a massive piece on the fallen angelics and on the demonic lines. Bringing us into November, two big pieces that were going on in November. We have just below, you've heard me speak about the fallen angelics, and on the other side we've got the grey, we've also got the demiurge. Just below the demiurge we have a consciousness field called Abraxas. And the Abraxas consciousness field basically were the royalty, the fallen royalty, that were holding a lot of the power for everything that's going below it, that comes off not the fallen angelics line, but the demiurge line. And the Abraxas line was the line that basically receives all the loose energy and is the intermediary between the consciousness field of the demiurge and everything below. Now, this was discussed in a movie, Jupiter Ascending, where the Abraxas was the royal family that held everything and collected all the DNA signatures and bathed in the golden pools for immortality. It's a similar concept. You can check out that movie to understand the Abraxas energy. At the top of all that was a golden chalice, which all that energy fed up into, creating all their power structures. That golden chalice was indeed starting to have the crumbling going on. That was starting to sort of just dissipate, where the very, very top of the matrix, the Abraxas energy, was starting to crumble. And that had entered into a full crumble in December, which I'll come to in a minute. In November, we also saw the medical system matrix collapse. There was a ritual using the catechus energetic and the talisman with a whole ritual energy that was creating created a massive entity that was growing so big around the world that entity was enormous, almost covered the entire world. What does that mean? Is that the modern medical system, of course, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to work out it's a complete distortion. It doesn't work on health, it works on sickness. And that the way that it's structured, it's all kind of very bright and sterile and horrible, the medical system. All the suffering and the misery that's created from that went up into a massive entity around the world, and that entity fed that consciousness ultimately up into the Abraxas system. And that entity and that whole ritual with the various ritual that was held all down was collapsed, and the entity was then taken off the earth and was sent to rehabilitation, meaning that all that loose energy that was going up from the suffering in the medical system has now been cut off from source. We personally found tracking us what we call an intergalactic parasite. We didn't, obviously we've been involved in pulling some of the strings of all of this dark energy for a long time, and wrapped around us was this intergalactic parasite that was creating so much, chaos in our lives, basically we found out about this and was able to thankfully deal with it. And hopefully now, coming into the end of the year, we can start to see some movement, because this intergalactic parasite had created a lot of chaotic fields in our life. And honestly, it's been the most difficult year of our lives. As we've gone further and further into this project of pulling things, more and more problems in terms of open demonic lines through other people's past lives, through various projects where there's chaos happening on the inside, have all been held by the realms of antimatter, pushing down on it. And so certain people involved in certain projects have had these open lives and open lines into these enormous dark forces that are going into these realms and creating complete chaos for us. And it's been a really, really challenging year to have to deal with some of these massive Gestalt consciousness fields which are coming through certain beings and into our fields. And thankfully we found the catalyst to it, this massive intergalactic parasite, which was drawing it all in towards us. So we're hoping now that with this gone and a little bit of a cleanup, we're starting to provide and going into some healing. There's been a number of projects which this poor thing has been wound into, and this energy has been creating chaos in, and so now we're just having to go through and smooth that out, and hopefully we can get some harmony and solidity back, because we've had so many open attack vectors throughout this year. It's been quite intense. Thank you to all the guardians, the Earth Guardians, who have been providing so much support for us, and all the students in the Neo-Shamanic Society who have been, some of you have been involved in some of this. It's been very hectic. I really thank you for all the healing that's been going on. It's not been an easy time. Certainly as we've got into November and December, it's really, really intensified, because what's happening is that the realms of antimatter and dark are becoming more and more and more desperate. So what they do is they look for individuals and individual holograms that have open lives or open lines or contracts into the demonic realms, into the high dimensional realms, and into other various dark sides, and send vast amounts of antimatter and thought forms down into them, which then whisper into us, and we get smacked around by it all. It's been quite hectic. But nonetheless, we feel we're getting closer to moving through. Hopefully more harmony and flow will come. And we get to December, and we've got to the big one, which is Washington. Remember, we had London, we had the Vatican, we had London, and Washington was the third in this trinity, which we had the most interesting experience, which was Washington held together such an interesting energetic, all the way from the bottom into the underworld, all the way to a higher dimension, up at the dimension 7 or 8, including a trapped Elohim consciousness, which was the creator God energy, was trapped, feeding down, kept in suffering and pain, and sending a broadcast energy down, which created a massive, massive pillar of dark light, all the way to the top, all the way to the bottom, locking everything down from the underworld, all the way to the very top, and that was held through Washington. And a very, very intricate mission that centered around a secret society called the Skull and Bones, which was is one of the secret societies which basically run America, which most of the presidents come out of. The energetic talisman and the power source to that was collapsed and dissolved. Thank you to Mother, Father, God, who willed it into motion through various groupings who were coming together to anchor into that. The entire Washington matrix collapsed, and so the power source in Washington is now gone. I'm happy to say, including the distortion to the zodiac alignments, which have been a distortion, including all the way down into the causal level template, where there was causal talismans anchoring everything down to the 3D here in Washington and into that secret society. All of these beings who covered power need the power source. And so as these massive columns of energy got dissolved, there's less and less power now for them to create their manifestations and intentions. So that was really, really exciting to see kind of what was going on there with that particular secret society, that's, utilising many of these human trafficking rituals that you hear about. That power source is now being pulled, so we start to see some movements. Also recently, those 13 families that I spoke about that were linked in right from the very beginning through the demiurge, those 13 families, had a lot of ritual in place that were giving them the power. The last piece I have to share on December was that the power source and the talisman and the satanic and the ritual that was holding everything together was pulled all the way back to 0 point. So that power source that was giving them their 13 families the power to continue their influence of control got pulled from all levels, and now they don't have that same power source that went all the way back to long time ago, to ancient races who were on the path of antimatter and service to self, feeding all the way down to here in the 3D where the 13 families were connected into. What we're witnessing now on those energetics is the 13 families are retracting back from a unified field into separate energy fields to come in to try to look after their own, so to speak. The 13 families were working as one field previously. That's now being broken up into 13 different fields, and we're starting to see a retraction of those energetics going back and back and back. So that's kind of, as we get to December, an expose of all the energetics, and what we're witnessing is a massive shift from the realms of antimatter to the realms of matter and light. Personally, what we're witnessing is a massive antimatter backlash coming. We're doing daily clearings and things like that are coming through at the moment, but we trust that that is going to dissolve itself out. We have now on the macro energetics for our planet, I would say a 18-month to 2-year window where there's this resetting and settling of energy. There may be a slight increase in the beginning of antimatter trying to re-establish itself. It's not going to be successful. These are going to be temporary blips. We're seeing things going on still in the aspects of war, but those wars that are happening don't have the energy anymore to sustain them. But we may see some more desperate plays by the realms of antimatter to try to re-establish itself. But what we feel is that that's going to stabilise, and in a couple of years we're going to start to see a lot more positivity happening on the planet. Certainly the second half of 2024, we start to see things start to flow a little bit more. As we get to 2025, things get better. 2026, I believe, we really start to see some movement, and then an exponential flick up happens as we get to the next decade. So I hope that gives the year in review. We now, from the, let's call it the pendulum swing, from where it was 70-80% down to 0%, we are now from, say, -70, maybe into +5, +10. The realms of matter and light have more energy and consciousness than the realms of antimatter, which means we have moving across, so it's about just past even, and the realms of matter and light maybe have their neck in front as the pendulum switch happens, because God has decreed it to be so. And what's happening is that God is exiting out massive amounts of antimatter from the system that has been powering up the network, is all dissolving. There's more to come. There's more pieces to focus on, some more pieces with the 13 families, but there's a major energetic structure linked into the demiurge in Berlin that will get dealt with next year sometime, no doubt. But other than that, there's a big shift that's happening on the planet. We cannot, the mainstream cannot see it yet, but those of you that are energetically sensitive will start feeling it. That noise and chaos that was in the field is starting to die down. There's occasional kind of punches and jabs that are coming from the realms of antimatter, trying to hold on to power. And they're coming through maybe individuals in your life, or certain people, or certain being, things that you have karmic entanglements with. We've certainly got a lot coming at us non-stop, but these things will settle themselves down. And as these things settle down, we shall start to see a much smoother, harmonious, both life at the micro level, at the individual level, and that will then filter out into the macro level. So I hope that gives a beautiful expose summary of everything that's happened in our experience of reality in this last 12 months. An unprecedented year. Thank you to everyone who has been on the path of service to others and has been responsible and involved in some of these things. There's an incredible debt of gratitude that humanity owes to anyone who's been involved in some of these structures and pieces. In the meantime, for your own growth and consciousness, keep being loving, keep sending loving, positive thoughts and feelings into the field. Look to be coming into unification rather than polarization. And the more that we come into harmony, the more greater shift we'll see in the collective fields of consciousness. Okay, I hope this gives a message of hope. It's very hopeful for the years ahead. Amazing shifts are going to happen on our planet, and it's going to happen in our lifetime, and it's going to leave a legacy for the generations to come. Thank you. Namaste. I love you.